Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside the Burrow, the FAU podcast for and by fans. My name is Dan. I am joined with the usual crowd of Shane and Jack, and tonight we have a special guest for you. Jake Elman from the Palm Beach Post is with us tonight. And, we're going to dig a little bit into the scrimmage that was last Saturday, talk about some personnel, and then try to give not really a game-by-game breakdown of the season, but maybe what our expectations are and maybe some hypotheticals. So we'll jump right into it, and we'll kind of go over the scrimmage. For me, one of the things doesn't necessarily stand out. I don't think there was too much that was unexpected. Robinson, again, looked good. I guess the one thing that kind of came out of left field was Posey, the freshman quarterback / athlete, that made the move to wide receiver, which I think is valuable, especially with FAU liking to use receivers as quarterbacks for trick plays. I don't think we really have a receiver that could have the arm kind of like Cameron Solomon that was kind of the default or go-to guy there. So I don't think that there was much out of the ordinary. I think you guys can dive a little deeper into that. But Jake, what was your thoughts? What kind of jumped out at you about this Saturday scrimmage?
I mean, the biggest thing for me is just another positive day from Chris Robinson. It's something that Kiffin kind of touched upon after the scrimmage was, we're not seeing the mistakes he was making last year. He's not forcing throws. If he feels that he can't make a play, that he's just going to throw the ball out of bounds. And, it wasn't an eye-popping day, and I don't think that the first scrimmage was, but he looks good. And, I've said this to Shane, I think that just being out there every day, the gap between him and Nick Tronti, and this is with all due respect to Tronti, it just feels like it grows every day, not just in terms of the competition itself, but the talent gap. I think Chris has really taken a step forward this summer, and it's been good to see.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Chris played well. He had the 2 touchdown passes to Harrison Bryant. He had a couple other third and longs. He threw the ball away numerous times. I don't think took any sacks. He does. I think this year, one little thing I've noticed is he looks much cleaner as a runner. He was always athletic last year. He's kind of a tall, lanky kid, and he was always kind of a long, striding runner, and it was almost like a little bit giraffe-like. I don't want to say he was goofy, but I think he looks a little better athletically this year, and did a good job of just getting outside of the pocket when the pressure came. I think we know how good he is, but I think we're kind of in for a really special season with Harrison Bryant. The kid's a polar bear out there. He's a cyborg. He's our Gronk. He's not our number one tight end. He's our number one receiver. It's apparent. They used him everywhere. He's going to line up in the slot, which we'll talk about later, which, I kind of mentioned on the forum this morning. I think affecting Willie Wright a little bit, but he's going to line up in the slot because they trust John Rain to do all the things at tight end. So anytime they can get both them on the field, they're going to move Harrison Bryant outside, inside. He's going to play everywhere, so they can – moving around will help maybe alleviate the double team so teams just can't, line up over him every play. But Chris Robinson and Harrison Bryant have a nice connection. I pointed out my owl bites. I thought, when a play kind of broke down, you can tell each quarterback when they're scrambling a little bit, they're looking for Harrison Bryant. Okay, like where's that 6'4", 230-pound, easy target to hit and move the chains. So I expect him to have a huge year. And, like I said, I think we're going to talk about the depth and the struggles at receiver. And like Lane said a couple of weeks ago, and I talked about on the podcast, they wish they'd started moving him around a little earlier last season. So we're going to see a lot of Harrison Bryant early on this year.
Yeah, especially with John Mitchell sustaining an injury during a scrimmage on Saturday. We tried to get some information out of Lane today. He didn't say much. All he said was that he wasn't at practice, as if, we couldn't see that for our own eyes. It doesn't seem like it's too serious, but we just don't know. We don't want to speculate. Ian Cole's already out for the year, a freshman that we talked about, Shane, a couple weeks ago in the first podcast of the year, how excited we are. That was a huge, huge bummer. And because of that, because of those injuries, the lack of depth at wide receiver, which we've been talking about all the time, we now see Posey temporarily going from the quarterback position to wide receiver spot. He's athletic enough, decent route runner. He could do, a few things better, but that's going to come with time and all. But I think it goes to show that we are getting a bit desperate at the wide receiver spot. Hence why we do need to shift Harrison Bryant over outside more often.
That was already – Harrison Bryant moving around was in the plan since the last 4 games of last year. The Javion Posey thing, you could say all the things you want, athletic, he's big, route runner. The fact that midway through camp, you have to think like, well, let's take our freshman quarterback and move him to receiver. I think Jack's 100% right. It's a little desperate.
It could be doing that, not necessarily as a decoy, but because they are desperate. But he could be used in, I'm thinking like in trick plays in game 5 or 6 in the third quarter. When
maybe what does that say if he goes out there and takes 5 meaningful snaps?
Right.
So, about the receiver that's been working there, someone like Jordan Burrow, who we thought had a nice spring, but I haven't been to every practice. Jake Elman, he can expand on this after me, who hasn't really, I feel, hasn't built off the good spring he had. I mean, I just haven't seen him a lot. Jake pointed out Willie Wright had a good day today, but I think Harrison Bryant being more in the slots only eliminating, taking away from where we could use Willie on the field, because it's tough to use him on the outside. I mean, Jake,
it's been a little surprising. I liked Jordan Morel's performance in the spring, and I was kind of thinking, nothing against Pico Harrison and John Mitchell, but obviously they've had injury issues in the past, and I think we knew coming in that the depth with the second-team receivers and third-team receivers was going to be questionable. And, Morel's had highlights at times, but he hasn't consistently wowed me the way that I thought that he'd be able to. And, it's been a little disappointing. And now, maybe with John Mitchell potentially being out for an extended period of time, we'll see. Kiffin didn't say anything today, but obviously John Mitchell's injury history, sometimes something with him that seems minor, it takes him a little bit of time to come back from. So this might be an opportunity for Morel. He said last week he likes playing outside. He likes playing inside. He likes that versatility factor. And I think Kiffin likes it too. But, Morel, we haven't seen as much of him as I think that we would have. The guy who really has stepped up is D'Angelo Anton, the USF transfer. He's really taken those snaps that I thought that Morel would take.
Yeah, he's been good. And the unfortunate thing with John Mitchell, and I don't think it's serious, and I know we're being a little bit more pessimistic about it just because of his history. But the play that he got banged up on was a 10 out of 10 play. Chris Robinson threw a pass 35 yards downfield to Mitchell's back shoulder down the sideline. He spots the ball, gets his body turned around, and reaches over the sideline and catches and gets both feet in, and just kind of fell to like the 3-yard line. It reminded me a lot. There was a play last year where Chris hit Javon Durant against Old Dominion at home, and it was like a beautiful deep throw, kind of back shoulder. It looked just like that. I said, wow. And, we hit a couple real nice deep plays, and now this happened. It's just unfortunate. Like I said, I just think they're a little bit more prepared for it this year. And, hopefully, I know Jake was talking about that. Some of the younger guys throughout the season, like Xavier Roberts-Donaldson, the wide receiver from Rome, Georgia, who only enrolled, started practice, got to school just a week before camp started. Some of these guys can emerge later on in the season.
Yeah, that's a good point, Shane. That's something I really want to see. Not even week 1, but that first month. We're only out there for 10 minutes after Thursday, because of they want to keep most of practice quiet, they want to work on scheme, whatever. But some of those receivers who maybe got here later are still adjusting. Is there a chance for somebody like Xavier Roberts-Donaldson or Javion Posey or Adrian Bryant? Maybe they're not in the mix right now just because they're still getting adjusted. They're still learning the playbook. For Posey, he's still adjusting to the fact that he actually has to play receiver and not quarterback. They may not be contributing week 1 or week 2, but could they be an option week 5 or week 6? And if the passing game is struggling then, if D'Angelo Anton maybe isn't producing the way that maybe FAU fans want him to or the coaches are expecting him to, if Rasan Lewis isn't doing much, if Dante Kuzar or Willie Wright at slot isn't doing much, does the door potentially open for one of those guys that's maybe a third-teamer or a second-teamer? Even Ronald Patterson and Brandon Robinson, James Brunson, those guys who might not be in the mix against Ohio State or might not be on the field, for 7 plays of a 10-play drive, could they have an opportunity to contribute later on?
And we've seen that a couple times in the past. I mean, I think we've seen it more with running back. I mean, if you want to go all the way back to probably even before that, but Buddy Howell comes to mind, and then Motor didn't really start playing until halfway through the season. That was dumb coach's decision, but there's certainly there might be a name that we're not necessarily thinking about or much right now that could start producing come later on in the year.
I do want to point out some positives, though. Speaking of Javion Posey, he did with the scrimmage. He looked great at quarterback. He showed a lot. He had that really nice pass. I believe it was to Brandon Robinson, 36-yard, beautiful dime. He's really athletic. He was playing, with a third team against the third teams, but he looked really good. Throws a nice ball. So, I mean, that's for quarterback of the future. Lane was like, no, he's definitely a quarterback of the future. And I thought he looked really good playing quarterback. Another player I wanted to mention is, we've talked about B.J. Emmons on this podcast, and we've talked about Larry McMahon, who took even more first-team reps this scrimmage. Is Malcolm Davidson, after kind of a slow spring, has had a really nice bounce-back fall and has made quite a bit of plays. Jake could agree. I think there's 4 running backs I would trust right now that could be legit contributors. I mean, is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think 4 is fair. Maybe that turns into 5 later on, just depending on how Kelvin Dean adjusts. He was taking reps with the 1s and 2s earlier in camp, and I'm not sure if he's just hit the rookie or the freshman wall or what, but he might be another of those guys that he may not be contributing early, but maybe he
comes only so many reps around. I mean,
right.
That's what I think it is.
Right, but with Davidson, I agree. They call him the Stallion because they say that he's the fastest of the running backs, and we've really gotten to see it the past week or so. Very explosive. I wasn't really sure, and to an extent, I'm still not really sure what his role will be, because I think that James Charles has definitely earned at least a share of the main carries. I think McCammon is definitely in the mix, and Emmons, he might not be the guy who's going to get a lot of carries or yards in the first quarter, but Shane and I were talking about this. Emmons is the guy who you might give the ball to in the third and fourth quarter because he seems to be the guy who's going to pick it up later in the game. Davidson could be a nice change of pace guy. The guy I was thinking of earlier today, Marcus Clark. I remember they wanted Marcus Clark to be this interesting change of pace guy, not your bruiser buddy, not Jay Warren, not your speedster Kerith White, but Marcus Clark, it seemed like, was kind of a jack of all trades. Sometimes he could beat you with his speed. Sometimes he could make a nice catch. Maybe that's Davidson's role, at least for the start of this year. A couple carries a game, maybe a reception or 2, a guy that you can work into the rotation.
We talk about how bad the receiving core is. Right now, there's a lot of running backs they trust. I think Davidson's more overall has a higher ceiling. I think I like the Marcus Clark comparison. If you want to play comparisons a little bit, I kept saying that Larry McCammon is a much more talented, a little bit more bruiser, the Ivory Edge Co.
Wow.
So
All
I
right.
think of
No,
that.
that's an interesting comparison.
I know you guys hate talking about college kickers, but I just got to give a shout out to Vladdy, dude, because holy smokes. He had like a 54-yarder. I've been one of his biggest critics, and I was a big fan of what I saw on Saturday.
Guys, it's Vladdy season. That's
Yeah.
what he tweeted. It's Vladdy
He
season.
tweeted that.
He does look more confident, I would say. I mean, right now he's kind of kicking more confidently, and we say Robinson throws a better ball. You could say he's kicking a better ball this year.
Yeah, it's just and again, like I said last week, we also can't. I saw someone say like, "Oh, I can't believe he's made this much of a turn." That doesn't mean he might not have a bad 2-game stretch. Again, if you can go out there and be 75% on the season, done, take that to the bank. Like I said, Lane's going to go for it most of the time anyways. Which is another situation we have to talk about because during a fake field goal later in the scrimmage, the punter, Sebastian Rayella, got hurt. So there's a couple social media posts today kind of hinting at like you'll get him next year. So looks like we lost our punter. And
yeah, that's unfortunate. Kind of a weird play. And it's harder to judge the punters in camp, but he's another guy who obviously he seems a lot more confident. He seems much more. What's the phrase, like sure of himself, comfortable with himself, and I think that was a big part of what bothered him last year. You had people coming at him on social media. You had people writing some negative things about the whole special teams unit. I think he took it very personally, just talking with him. And now he got to the point in the spring where he's like, okay, I'm here for a reason. I'm going to improve. I believe in myself, and just talking to him that he was able to get to that point. Same with Vladdy. That's a big step, especially for those specialists, because they don't have. It's not like a running back where I'm stopped for 2 yards, or I'm a receiver, I dropped the ball. Okay, next time out. Vladdy, he missed 2 important field goals that took FAU from maybe 7-5 to 5-7. So hopefully everything works out with Riella. If he can't go, it'll be the Aussie Matthew Hayball, who kind of looks like Chris Hemsworth.
I want to give Sebastian a shout out for talking about mental health. He had a tweet over the summer talking about student athletes and mental health and how programs should be more open to giving athletes help. And now FAU has heard his suggestion and is now starting a seminar once a month for student athletes to help them. I think that's great. So Sebastian, I mean, you should be proud of that, bud. Don't let this injury get you down. Be proud of this positive change that you're creating, not just for your fellow football players, but for all of FAU athletics. And that's something that I'm proud of you for doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you haven't read it, definitely check out Jake's story. It was a great read. So
Thank you.
We've managed to talk about kickers probably more in the first 2 or 3 weeks than we probably would care for without the kicker actually kicking anything in the game. We've talked a lot about him, but Jake, you kind of mentioned, and we'll pivot here, where you mentioned that last year we were a bounce away from going 7-5 and 5-7, and today I put up a poll about kind of what the season expectations. And Shane, I mean, you actually, I like the way you described it before we got on air. What was, as far as kind of like framing the season expectations or the hypotheticals, how did you describe that? And then we'll kind of go from there.
Well, just to kind of lead up what I was saying, Conference USA is very volatile in a way. There's no pecking order of talent. This isn't the SEC where you're kind of slotted in. You're either going to be 7-5 or 9-3 in a couple of 50-50 games. I'm at the point right now, someone told me we're going to go 5-7, I wouldn't be shocked. And if someone told me we were going to go 10-2, I wouldn't be shocked. But, what I was kind of wondering is, what would a good season look like? What if we go 7-5, which I think would be a little disappointing? we'll still be going to a bowl, which I think would be fine. But what if that's 7-5, or even let's say 6-6? Look, Chris Robinson had a great year. A lot of the young defensive players played well. Larry McKinnon, was emerging as a star, and some of the young offensive linemen played well. And the issues came otherwhere. We just lost some close games with kicking, or knock on wood, there was a lot of injuries on defense or something like that. How would FAU fans feel about that? I think if Robinson has a good year, we go into next year saying, okay, we got 2 more years of a really talented quarterback. I'm going to take a lot of positive out of that. I know we want to win the conference. I think we'll be in that race. I think us getting a lot of our tough games at home. I know our schedule starts off brutal, but Marshall at home, FIU at home. If we look at Chula Bowl history, FIU has only won once as the away team in Chula Bowl history. So Marshall at home on a short week, Middle Tennessee at home, Southern Miss at home. So, and as I think someone on the forum pointed out, every team in the country gets 2 bye weeks this year because of the way the calendar worked out. Not one team we face is coming off a bye week. So little things like that, I think, could be the difference between 5-7 and 8-4. Just little things. So
I mean, 7-5 sounds decent. Would be just a bit disappointing. I mean, we're talking about losses, obviously, to Ohio State, UCF. But then whenever you're dropping home games, Marshall at home, FIU at home, Southern Miss at home, I'm just guessing here, unless we're going to give up.
Yeah, I mean,
Charlotte on the road.
They're not a very good team. They let their quarterback transferred out. But Ball State scares me because, you're going to have big emotional game, UCF, all the energy is going to be a lot of poured into that. And then you got to go on a plane, fly to the middle of Indiana and play a 2 p.m. game in front of 1,000 people, where you kind of have like this hangover. Biggest home game in school history, in-state rival. And if you're coming out of that 0-2, I mean, how do you get people up to go play in Indiana? So that, just things like that.
I feel like it's kind of like Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit like that.
But Buffalo, we came off a game where we played Wisconsin well, and then we beat Bethune-Cookman, and then went into Buffalo and randomly decided to change quarterback. So,
right.
But yeah, if we lose to Marshall and FIU this year and UCF and Ohio State, and then kind of win the rest, is that satisfying? I don't really know.
It's Shane, I want to go back. Shane, I want to go back to what you said about the Ball State game. The last time FAU won a non-conference road game was against USF in 2013. So it's been a while, and we can have a different conversation about whether 2013 USF is on the same level as 2019 Ball State. Everything that goes to those games, all the different factors, whatever. Point being, they've played some mediocre teams on the road in that space. In terms of, Ohio State, you just hope that you're competitive. And UCF, very good team. We'll see what happens in that game. But they also have Wagner week 4. So trap game in terms of looking ahead, and maybe in terms of maybe starting 0-2, saying, we definitely have a chance to go 2-2. We're definitely going to go in the conference play 2-2. We're even saying, we could definitely be 3-1.
It's the very definition of a hangover game.
I know what it is. I'm talking about in the context. We can agree to disagree.
Okay. I mean, back to the expectation, Dan and Jack. I don't know. I think I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this season. I think kind of with the recruits, and I think in a weird way this is almost like year one, just because how Lane has switched back to the high school recruiting, and he kind of pounded that on his summer tour, like how we've gone away from the JUCOs, and how much we've seen a lot of JUCOs, especially at receivers and transfers, that have not worked out. That's why, we've talked about this 100 times, why they went away from that. So I kind of look at it as like, well, they came in, they did it one way, and now they're going to kind of rebuild the foundation, and I like that foundation. So my pressure on this season isn't that high, I should say.
Honestly, as long as we leave Columbus, Ohio, mostly injury-free. Maybe we cover. I want to say the line is like 27, 28 right now. As long as we cover, put up a good fight, at least better than what it was in Oklahoma last year. This game will be on national TV. It's on Fox, and we played Oklahoma last year on Fox. Both games were at noon, and I'm just praying for something better than last year. Then I'm okay. Then I'm going to kind of bring us back down. We could go 10-2, yeah. UCF, maybe we can catch them on a bad day. But I guarantee you there are at least 5 other teams in this conference saying exactly the same thing. After 7-5, I mean, I don't know if that's really worth it. A bowl game would be great, but I mean, a 6-6, 7-5 bowl game. Are we going to be playing Akron again? But when we were talking about 7-5, if that's going to be acceptable, I mean, it depends, Did we win the Shula Bowl again? And did that prevent FIU from winning the conference or, going to the conference championship game? You know what? Okay, fine. I'll take that. Sounds good. I would love to play spoiler, get some schadenfreude, seeing like the 7 FIU fans on Twitter be upset because they can't go to the conference championship game because we beat them. Fine. I'll be 7-5. I'll lose to Ball State for that deal.
Don't go that far.
Man, I mean, those Twitter meltdowns will be prime. That being said, would you rather beat UCF or FIU? Just say one of those and then we'll be good.
Ooh, UCF. Just give us the big one at home. I mean,
I think I would take FIU regardless, honestly, because look, it's kind of obvious how I feel about UCF. But at the end of the day, that conference win, I would much rather see FAU win a Conference USA title than be the team that ends UCF's regular season winning streak.
No. I want a ranked win at home. You don't get a lot. We do not get it. We've never played a ranked team in our stadium. The last time a FAU played a ranked team at home was Matt Grothy. So we literally get one of these games every 12 years. No, I want my ranked win at home. Give me that night. Give me a win in front of 30,000 instead of if we lose that game or roll into the Shula Bowl instead of the win just in front of announced 20,000 at the Shula Bowl game.
I'm going to agree with Shane. There's more to gain by beating UCF than there is to losing to FIU.
Yeah, we lost FIU before, and if we're a good team and FIU's a good team, we lose to a good FIU James Morgan team in his senior year, stinks. But man, give me a ranked one at home. I mean, it's something we've never had in program history.
Because no matter what, UCF, they're not going to lose to FAMU. So they will go into Howard Schnellenberger Field 1-0, still ranked, and that will be our chance to do it. So
this is the best team we've ever had at home. I mean, Matt Grothy, but we played number 6 USF.
Number 6, they went up to number 2 after they beat us.
Yeah,
number 2 in the country.
And they lost to Rutgers on Friday night. The greatest college football season in history. Kansas and USF and I believe Oregon State all were at number 2.
That was 2007, and I'm right there with you. There needs to be a documentary on that year because it was complete chaos.
Curse of the Thursday night game as well. It's like every number 2 team lost on a Thursday night.
Yeah, there needs to be more college football seasons like that. We just can't, Bama, Clemson. It's way more fun when it's absolutely Kansas.
I'd rather take the win over UCF.
No, I thought, you didn't say. I thought you said FIU.
Yeah. Earlier, I mentioned FIU, but UCF's going to be going into the game still ranked, so I would take that. Yeah, put him in her spot.
All right, way to be wrong, Jake.
It's okay. I'm used to it.
So I think that about wraps it up for tonight. I do want to give a special shout out to Jake, and we appreciate him being on. And I imagine this isn't his last time on. Check us out on iTunes. Just search Inside the Burrow. And Shane's doing more for the Nest with recruiting, and Jack's doing a lot with writing, and we're trying to reach you guys a little bit more. Make sure you check us out on Instagram as well. Our Instagram name is FAU Inside the Burrow. Oddly enough, Inside the Burrow was taken by a guy who studies burrowing spiders. So maybe I'll message him and be like, hey, can we have the name for it, please? But yeah, FAU Inside the Burrow on Instagram and Inside the Burrow on Twitter. And we look forward to bringing you guys some more great content. And again, thanks, Jake, for making the time.
Hey, next episode of the game week. It's here.
It's
so finally, it's the longest summer ever. The spring game was, I said, it was 8 years ago.
Yeah. So we thank Jake for being on the show, and for Jack and Shane. We look forward to breaking down Ohio State next week, and we'll see you then. And go Owls.